Well, namaste
Namaste.
and namaste.
Hello, everyone out there. We are live broadcasting from the Temple of Surrender here in Marina del Rey. I'm Rasa Devi, and I'm here with
Alora Inanna.
Inanna, and we are emissaries of light and love, devoted to the embodiment and rebirth of the Divine Feminine. And today we're sharing the wisdom, the light and love of the feminine to bring forth a healing presence, a guidance in response to this time on the planet and the current situations that have been unfolding, especially here in the United States. So we are responding to the suffering, the pain, and we are accessing these pathways, these ancient pathways, to understand and have a deeper understanding of our humanity, to have a deeper understanding of what exactly is unfolding, and also to empower us with how can we navigate these difficulties, these challenges. How can we go through this journey of life, the whole spectrum of it, and how can we understand it? And so we will look through the ancient lenses and sciences of astrology, and also through the mystical, metaphysical, and mythic aspects of life.
So hello, and it's so wonderful to have the technology that is letting us talk to you live. It's been a dream of mine for a very long time to be able to bring the voice of the goddess live to the world and have it go out without restriction, and to bring not only my voice but my sister's voice and the voice of many, many women as the voice of the goddess returns to the planet. So I once was a woman named Karen, and I had a regular life, and I had a husband and children, which I loved and love and in no way have abandoned. And yet there was a time when there was a call on my spirit, and it was so profound I could not turn away from it. I had to let go of my identity as a mother, wife, and worker, and wake up to a deeper part of myself that is the divine feminine alive within me. And the story that really began that for me is the story of Inanna, who is humanity's original goddess of love. So we are aware in this moment that one of the primary myths of Inanna is the myth of her descent. And this morning we realized, not that we haven't known it, but because of all the shootings, because of all the terrorist activities that are going on in our world right now, we realized how deeply the world is in a descent in this moment, and that more than ever before, it is time to understand the purpose of this descent, understand the stories that have come before that tell us how to move through that descent, how to rise from that descent. So we are beginning with the story of the descent of Inanna, which is one of the most ancient stories in humanity's entire history. And we will be speaking to how its teachings reflect exactly what we're going through right now, both individually and collectively. And just to begin, we want to acknowledge that as we broadcast today, we are in the very last moon of the year. We are in the 13th moon of the lunar calendar. It is the cosmic moon of presence, and the purpose of this moon is to take magic flight. So I'm taking a moment to read from you a declaration and something that was actually transmitted to me many, many years ago about this particular time. It says, the lunar year concludes with the energy of transcendence being so in harmony with your life and all beings that you live in the bliss state of joy, truth, and love. During this entire 28-day cycle, recognize the truth that you are an emissary of the goddess, a pioneering woman demonstrating the value of embodying your holy goddess self. Radiate the healing light of the goddess to all of creation, allowing your presence to expand joy and love. So our call today is that for the next 7 days, we will be transmitting live, working with the particular story of Inanna, and creating a portal through which we invite many other women who have their wisdom to share to come and to begin to have a place that is consistent, that is universal, and is inclusive, through which the presence of the goddess can reach out and touch our trembling planet, trembling on the verge of both what seems like the very worst of times and is also undoubtedly the very best of times. So thank you for being with us live. We see that both Stephanie and Leslie are here with us, and whoever sees this when
Later.
It's not live, that's right. Thank you so much.
So this will be an ongoing, thank you for everything that you shared, all of your wisdom and just beauty and presence. And as Alora said, for the next 7 days, we're going to continue this conversation to have a deeper understanding of what's unfolding on the planet right now, what is happening within ourselves, so that we can understand the inner mysteries of life, understanding ourselves on that soul level, understanding this everyday sense of life, and also understanding this greater unfolding that's happening with the collective self. And as we look out in the media over the last few days and over the last few weeks, and really the patterns that have been unfolding, there's a lot of violence, aggression, and these types of things that are playing out, and tragedies, deaths, and what's happening here is a deeper unfolding, unraveling, and a shedding. And so this greater myth, astrologically speaking, we can look at the stars to understand and receive the wisdom of the stars. We can look at the earth and the unfolding and receive the inner wisdom of the earth. And we can also tune our ear to the inner world and understand what's happening in the underworld. And so it is all of that wisdom that we're bringing forth to support and help us so that we can feel empowered, so that we can have a better understanding, and so we can navigate this crisis. And the descent, the myth of Inanna, one of 4 great myths, as Alora was mentioning, the 4th myth is a spiritual, metaphysical myth talking about her descent to the underworld to visit her sister.
Well, let me do this. I think it'd be great, since many people watching this will never have even heard of Inanna.
That's true.
So before we get into the 4th myth, let's just speak to who is Inanna. So if you go back 5,000 years, back to Sumeria, the cradle of civilization, we have the cuneiform texts that were written in the language of the time that tell the story and the myths of Inanna. And I was a woman back in the mid-90s who was completely uninterested in the goddess, who happened to be given a book by my sister, which was The Goddess Mirror. It talked about Demeter and Aphrodite and Hecate and things I had no interest in. And then I hit the story of Inanna and the god of wisdom. And when I encountered that story, I encountered a mythology so deep that it riveted me. And it became my passion to speak and bring forward what I feel is really almost like a Bible that has been lost, that is full of feminine wisdom, but suppressed by the patriarchal culture and left to be unknown, so that if you ask most people who is Inanna, they don't even know.
So, question: how can we help them understand the four aspects of what Inanna represents as a myth and an archetype?
Well, what we're speaking to right now is that there are four major myths from Inanna. There's lots of poetry. There's a huge body of real, like, journals, like women who were who were priestesses in the temples of Inanna, and we can read their daily journal writings. But the four main myths start off with her being a young woman going into puberty, and she wants a bed and a throne. And that is really about her stepping into womanhood. So that myth is a beautiful myth, and we could talk about it, but we're not going to do that today.
Yeah.
The second myth is the myth of Inanna and the God of Wisdom. And this is about her. I always imagine she's about 18. She's a young queen, and she wants to go and visit the God of Wisdom and gain the wisdom that he has, the civilizing wisdom, which is called the Holy Me. And that story riveted me because I heard for the first time what it was like for our language to be language before sexual shame. So in the story of Inanna and the God of Wisdom, it starts off, this is this amazing book, Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth, Her Stories and Myths from Sumer. And the very first part of this story, I just love the language of it. It says, Inanna placed the shagura, the crown of the steppe, on her head. She went to the sheepfold, to the shepherd. She leaned back against the apple tree. When she leaned against the apple tree, her vulva was wondrous to behold. Rejoicing at her wondrous vulva, the young woman Inanna applauded herself. Well, when I heard that, I went, okay, I'm going to pay attention to this goddess.
This again was the archetype aspect of the divine feminine as
becoming
the
a queen.
The queen.
Becoming a queen.
So
celebrating.
Again, four aspects of the divine feminine that we're highlighting right now so that we can have the context for going into the fourth aspect, which is the mystical, metaphysical. So we're on the second. So the third one.
The third one is the courtship of Dumuzi. And it's the world's first love story. And it is an amazing story. And talk about language before sexual shame. I'll definitely go into that at some point. And it is really about her becoming a wife and going through the sexual initiation of life. And ultimately
being
a mother.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really hear about her being a mother during that myth. We hear about her marriage being her. No, not the consort. We hear about her becoming married and becoming initiated into the fullness of sexual love, and
also being of service, right, to the people, to the humankind.
You know, that part isn't so much in that myth.
Okay.
What is actually interesting in that myth is at the end of it, after they've had, weeks or months, who knows long, of passionate lovemaking, he finally says, stop, let me go govern the people. I've got to get out of this bedroom.
I have a purpose.
So he goes off to be queen, okay? And you could maybe say that the seed of the descent is in there, because what she says in that last thing, she says, oh, Dumuzi, your love was sweet.
Your love was sweet.
So we see the prefiguring of marriage stopping being full of romance and joy and becoming more of a functioning partnership. And in that is the loss of the aliveness of love that is so wonderful that we all feel when we're brilliantly in love. So something happens between that experience and her going into the descent. And one of the things that happens is she does have children. She does have a life as a queen and as a married woman.
And on a personal level, I can actually speak to that myth as a woman going through my own journey of life in different stages, and also going on the descent. I feel that it is the calling, like what you were saying in the beginning. It is that higher calling within for us to turn inward. Going on the descent is going deep down within. It is descending down deep into the psyche, into the unconscious, and seeing what's there. And in this myth, she hears the moan, she hears the cries of her sister.
Well, that's not why she goes at the beginning. I mean, she knows that her sister's husband has died, so ostensibly she goes to mourn with her sister.
Right.
But in truth, she goes down
for a deeper quest.
For a deeper quest.
A deeper quest, which is ultimately, on a personal level, I would say it is the seeking for a deeper love. And that deeper love is not something that we find in a partner. It's not something that we find in a husband. It's actually something that we find within ourselves. And that deeper love calls us within through that descent. And when we rise out of that descent, we come from this place of overflow, from this place of the deepest love that's possible. And from that overflow, we give our love. And from a personal level, a few days ago, being deep in the underworld myself, feeling as if I was standing on a cliff, saying to myself, do I want to stay on the planet or do I want to leave the planet? Feeling myself go into those deep, dark, emotional places. Meanwhile, all of these things are projecting out in the outer world as we're watching across the United States unfolding.
Not just the United States. We're talking about terrorism all over the world.
Terrorism all over the world, unfolding. The darkness within ourselves, calling us within as we see it reflected outside. And so we realize is that, yesterday I was saying to Alora, is that astrology and myths are these greater pathways to help us understand our humanity, to help us gain this deeper insight and wisdom, and also to provide the guiding light of love for us to navigate that terrain within ourselves as we go into the deeper, darker, unconscious places within ourself, within our psyche, and also as we look outside of ourselves and we see these tragedies and these deaths and things happening, how can we understand this? And so that's where we can kind of move in that direction of helping us understand this descent that we're all in collectively and individually, and understanding that there's a higher purpose to it.
Absolutely. So Rasa has a deep understanding of astrology, and she is going to be, in the next 7 days, speaking to some of what's going on astrologically that helps us understand what's happening collectively with humanity. And for me, what I want to okay, so we're back. I don't know if I think it's live still.
Yeah,
it says live too.
It says live, yeah.
So the thing I want to contribute to this is the concept of the heroine's journey, which is a very important book by Maureen Murdoch, one of the most important books that I began to read when I started my own journey. So to go back to what you said a minute ago is, see, right now, if I ask a young girl what she wants to be when she grows up, she's going to tell me some version of the children she wants to have, the relationship she wants to have, or the career she wants to have. So she's going to tell me mother, wife, and worker. Those are the roles that we see as possible in our lives. And I had a period in my life where I was very full with all of those roles. I loved my children, I loved my husband, and I loved my work. And my husband and I began to go through a descent, and everything that had been working for us stopped working, and we started losing money, and our business started failing. He fell in love with somebody else. All kinds of difficult things started happening. And I realized at some point that those three positions, mother, wife, and worker, they are all service positions. They are all about your relationship with someone outside of yourself. So you're a mother because you have children, you're a wife because you have a relationship, and you're a... So I wonder what this does. You're a worker because you are serving clients in some way. So what I came away with from my own process was I wanted to change that triad. I wanted to change it to Mother, Child, and Holy Goddess, because the mother is enough service. The child is the free-spirited, wild, playful, innocent, free being that we all remember being before we went into puberty. And the Holy Goddess is the powerful feminine that needs nothing to define her. She does not need a man to be the Holy Goddess. She does not need to have children. She does not need a job. She is the divine, feminine, whole, complete. So Inanna's journey is really to move through the roles of society into the fullness of herself as an expression of the divine. From there, she becomes the goddess of love that is the catalyzing force for civilization in our world, really. So this is the heroine's journey, and I think we've done a lot and probably shouldn't say too much more. I don't know how long people can listen.
I feel like just to tie it all together, thank you all for being patient with us as we explore this new realm together, and also really respond from a place of inspiration and love and wisdom to offer up this truth and offer up this voice of the divine feminine through us, as us, to support humanity, to support our individual and collective journeys, and just to speak to the external that's happening and also the internal that may be happening. For some, it may be stronger than others. For me, this particular cycle that we're in, that we've been in for like the past 40 days or a little bit less, has been this underworld journey, and we could go a lot deeper into it, and like Laura was saying, we will continue this conversation, but really to just so we can touch on this and bring it all together, and also bring some more direct guiding wisdom, is that the unfolding of the violence this is part of our descent as a humanity and a collective self, is that we are descending into these deeper unconscious aspects of our humanity, of our history and our past, of our collective psyche, so that we can shed these layers. As Inanna goes through the 7 gates, she sheds 7 garments, which are symbolic of 7 layers of the ego. And so what's happening right now in the collective that we see playing out is that we really are in this descent, and we are in fact shedding these layers of ego, shedding these layers of separation and violence and prejudice, and really getting in tune with these inner wounds that are happening as we were all collectively creating this reality. As we're collectively creating this reality, we have to look really, truly, deeply within ourselves to feel what is there, so that we can acknowledge the suffering that's there, acknowledge the pain that's there. It is an emotional journey. It does require courage. It is a metaphysical journey. It is going into the spiritual aspect of life, and we are doing that right now collectively, is going into the collective unconscious of the self, for us to allow this pain and suffering to come to the surface, for us to acknowledge it. And what rises from that healing, from the ascent, which is what we will continue to explore, is compassion, is this birth of a new feminine, is this birth of new values, is a birth of a new paradigm and a new reality. And so we are facing and seeing great violence and tragedies. It's important to see, as we hold each other, embrace each other in our hearts, and understand that there's a greater purpose to this. And the greater purpose is this acceptance, is this compassion, is that we're actually birthing a new reality. And what I'd like to say is that the men, both both the men, the policemen, the black men, all people that are facing this violence that we're seeing, it's hard for our human minds and our human hearts to understand, how can there be a greater purpose to this, to these tragedies? How can there be a greater purpose to that? And I understand that, and I
I
embrace
want to say
that.
something because
Yeah.
I'm looking at the comment the guy put there. See, I did last night in the middle of the night. I woke up, went and read more of what's been going on, and I have such a particular love for the black race, and I feel that it actually is uh, embodying the darkness, the things we're all afraid of.
The wild power,
You
the
know, I mean,
sexuality.
I always worry about being, what do you call that, culturally appropriate or whatever, politically appropriate. But the truth, in my experience, is that there is a fear of the intuitive, sexual,
Instinctual,
emotional,
primal.
instinctual, primal part of ourselves that is why there is so much suppression and violence against black people. And
So you're saying that the
I'm,
black
I'm
people
just
kind of
responding to
represent
this.
that, and we're going through this journey of embracing.
Well,
that
I'm just saying
aspect.
that I know that there is a part of me that would, if my I the desire to respond with violence is a human thing, and I'm not no longer human, and I get a little impatient with the constant, oh well, let's just be loving. I want to say, wait a minute, there's something fundamentally wrong here, and yes, it's part of the clearing, but it's so funny because last night there was a little part of me afraid to push that button, but there was also a part of me that just said, no, I'm going to say this is so, well, it's so not okay to have those people who are supposedly protecting us unconscionably, without control, without remorse, continuing to afflict the black race.
So
I
I feel like
do get violent
I feel like
internally.
what that represents in, if we're trying to see a lot of these things as symbolic, is the power that's out of control, right? So when you shoot someone that is unarmed, it is exercising this surge of power, but it is a power from the place of.
Well, personally, I think that there's a I mean, it's just symbolic of the whole thing. Most of the people who are attracted to the systems of law enforcement that we have, I don't think they're very different from the people that are incarcerated. I think that there's a sickness around.
Twisted
There's
shadow
there's a
side
shadow,
to.
and it's in the violent criminals, but it's in the violent
So what we can see happening
sheriffs
here
and
is that
police.
it's all magnified through the social media, is that we see this opportunity as we're in this descent and see these magnified aspects of our collective self, men, women, masculine and feminine, seeing what is there for us to look at, what aspects of men and women, of feminine and masculine within ourselves do we need to look at so that we can heal these deeper wounds where all of this twisted experiences are happening, where these violence and things are happening. What is it within ourselves that we need to heal, to purify? And we're in this portal of purification right now. We're in this portal of transformation with the alignment as a trinity, a grand trine that's existing in the stars. And again, as above, so below, we see the stars for wisdom, we see the earth for wisdom, and we see the underworld, the inner world, the psyche, and the unconscious for wisdom. And so we're really going into this deeper reflection on what is there here right now for all of us to look at, take responsibility and ownership. And for me, a few days ago, what was coming to me is what is worth living. It's also about getting in touch with our purpose here on the planet is also part of the healing. It's getting in touch with the passion that we feel is part of the healing. So it is looking at these shadow aspects for healing. It is for healing, integration, transformation, and through that ascent, rising and being birthed is a new human, is a new paradigm, a new reality, a new contribution to society and to the world. And through also the passion and the purpose, getting in touch with those two things. And it's often all of the veils, the illusions that are blocking us. And so right now I feel like, to wrap this up, we can perhaps offer a couple of inspiring practices and guidance that we can all access at this moment to support us as we journey through the underworld individually and contribute that collectively. One thing I would like to offer is to encourage some questioning. Is, what is this life worth living? What is my purpose here? What is it that I'm passionate about? And the fourth question would be, what blocks do I have? What blocks do I have? What is blocking love? What is blocking me from moving forward? Those 4 questions I would like to propose for all people to get in touch with, to be part of taking action. That we're not just sitting back going, Washington, Washington, or you, take action. That how can we individually take ownership, look within ourselves to see what is there, and also to take action from this place of awareness, from this place of consciousness, this new consciousness being birthed through this inner descent and inquiry, and to come out from this place as we come out of the descent, astrologically speaking, next week, individually and collectively, as we come out of this, born anew, rebirth, renewed, resurrected. And what would you like to say? Is any inspiring and encouragement
I want
for
to
people
say
for healing?
that the thing that I turn to over and over and over again now is the last sentence practically in The Untethered Soul, which I have around here somewhere, but I don't know where it is. But basically what Michael A. Singer says in the very last paragraph of that is he speaks of the unimaginable peace there is when you realize that life knows what it's doing. So while I may rage against what is happening, because I don't want to deny the rage. There is rage is if your boyfriend, Miss Gaia Wish, was killed in front of you unfairly, I don't think you'd stand there and go, oh, it's okay. No, you'd have rage, you'd have fury, you'd have emotions. And I don't want to be someone who doesn't have those emotions. It's okay. What helps me let the emotions happen but not act from the emotions, not genuinely take any difficult action, is to remember that life knows what it's doing. There is ultimately no death. My sister has had to go through an amazing experience in the last 3 years now of losing her child, and she's in such communication with him now. All of it is somehow the perfect process that we are in individually and collectively to evolve as a species. So somehow this is perfect, even though I personally am furious and angry and all those things at the pain that is happening to my sisters and brothers based on race. And so I'm not
so you're
exactly
saying trust and have faith in the
that
perfection
life
and orchestration
knows
of life.
what it's doing.
Life knows what
Life
it's doing.
knows what it's doing.
So we can see all of these black men and policemen and all people that have recently been involved in these tragedies. I would say, when I see it, I feel for the families, I feel for their children, and I also look at that man beyond the man into the soul, and I realize what a courageous mission he has left.
Agreed to.
A great mission that he's agreed to, a great legacy that he's made And in the aftermath, in the wake of these tragedies, what
Change
it's
is
igniting,
occurring.
it's changing,
Change is occurring.
It's changing and revolutionizing, and change is happening, healing is happening. And so thank you to those great courageous souls that have agreed to something so profound and have blessed us with this greater legacy that's unfolding of love.
Namaste.
Namaste.